learn only in order to create, as the German philosopher Friedrich Schelling once said. And Schelling, of course, is one of the main figures in German idealism. And my next course, which will be on German idealism, is now open for enrollment. And this dictum from Schelling, learn only in order to create, not to memorize information, etc. That's not learning. No, learn so that you become creative. That is the leitmotif of this course, of all my courses, and of the school that I'm building here. So I'm inviting you all to join me on this journey to learn about German idealism and where it came from and what it means for us today. As I said before, enrollment is now open. You can find all the details on that just down below in the description of this video. But let me briefly summarize what we will be covering in the course so that you know what you're signing up for. We will begin with 2 lectures on Immanuel Kant. That's necessary because while Kant is not necessarily a German idealist, and those details don't matter for now, why he is or why he isn't, with Kant, what begins with his transcendental idealism is a completely and radically new way of thinking. At the same time, of course, there's something quite troubling about Kant, at least about his critical philosophy, namely the fact that nature disappears in the noumenal realm. We only now have, access to representations of appearances. We form objects purely from these appearances according to subjective categories, but what things are in themselves we won't have access to anymore with Kant. Nature disappears. So we will focus on Kant, more specifically on the Kant of the first critique, for 2 lectures. Then we will consider Fichte, because you can see I mentioned subjectivity, subjective categories. What comes to the fore with Fichte, and he's aware of this, Fichte tries to overcome, he's struggling against subjectivism. Subjectivism, we could say, is almost equivalent to nihilism at this time, because nihilism at that time means that the subject loses itself within itself and no longer gains any access to the world outside, to nature. I'm not saying that this is necessarily what's happening in Fichte, but there is a sincere threat already in Kant that this could, that the subjectivity here promoted could collapse into a crude subjectivism or even solipsism. Fichte wasn't able to struggle against subjectivism or even overcome it in an appropriate way because he didn't yet fully delve into the dialectic of reason, and he wasn't able to overcome, or let's not say overcome, but think through the oppositionality, the contradictory nature of what's at stake here when you're trying to articulate and think through the one and the many, and the oppositionality between subject and object and how they come together, how there can be an identity between what is non-identical or what is differentiated, what is different from one another. There will be the three main men of German idealism, each try this in a different way. Friedrich Hölderlin, Friedrich Schelling and Georg Hegel. All of them, by a strike of luck, or rather perhaps by a sending of fate itself, were roommates in Tübingen while they were students of theology. And during this time, they, together, all 3 of them, they became friends, and they read Heraclitus together. They tried to think through the hen kai pan, the one and many. How could it be that logos relates to us, and how we as mortal beings can think through this, that one is many and many is one, or rather all is one and one is all. Friedrich Hölderlin, for example, thinks in terms of the poetical eye and a harmony of oppositionality. Schelling has the notion of Gegensatzphilosophie, of oppositional philosophy. And of course with Hegel we really reach to the highest moment of the dialectic of reason and of the idea itself. So there will be 1 lecture on each of them, so there will be some poetic relief as well. With Hölderlin there will be much time spent on the question of nature and man's place within it. We will ask about the relationship, or consider the relationship between poetry and philosophy. With Schelling, however, we will also consider the question of evil and its relationship between evil and freedom. And so there will be some time also then devoted to ethics and moral philosophy, and not just to logic and the philosophy of nature. And with Hegel, of course, what we are really trying to do is, we won't so much consider the phenomenology of spirit, but really the science of logic. And in one lecture, try to get across why it is that Hegel is the absolute peak, the high point of German idealism. And going from there, we will always be considering how this influenced everyone who came after them. Of course, obviously Karl Marx, Husserl, Heidegger, Sartre, Deleuze, Derrida, they will be somewhere in the background all the time. And what you get when you enroll is 6 video lectures, 6 audio lectures, with that the notes to all of the lecture notes. It's written as a little book, as it really, that I've written for this. And I have also recorded additional videos on Jacob Böhme, and on Baumgarten, who are very important figures in the run-up to, so all of the German idealists quote from Böhme, especially Schelling and Hegel, and also Baumgarten is very influential on Kant. So I'm going to provide these additional resources as well, so you get a bit of a better idea of where they came from and what influenced them. So when you sign up, there are 3 different tiers. The first one is just for the self-learners, so you can enroll in that and you get lifetime access to all the videos. So when I taught the course last year, I didn't have those videos on Jacob Böhme and Baumgarten yet. But everyone who signed up last year will now have access to these new videos. So every time I'm teaching a course again, if you sign up for it once, you get access to every new addition to the course. So it's a growing, living, organic library that will continue to grow as my academy grows and flourishes further. The middle tier is the one that is usually taken by most people, which gives you not access only to the lectures, but also to 7 seminars with me. And in the final seminar, you will be able to present your own work. And the highest tier, the 3rd tier, is where you can just meet with me 6 times, one-on-one sessions for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, where we can discuss either in a deeper way, in a more profound way, some of the core texts we're reading, or if you're working on a creative project where you need some sort of, let's say, executive coaching in your decision making or so. That's what these sessions are there for. I've worked with professors of mathematics, people in tech in Silicon Valley, people in lawyers in New York, lawyers in London, and psychiatrists. So that's really then for you if you want to delve deeper into these texts or work on your own creative or intellectual project with me, or also if you need, as it were, a facilitator for some of the decisions that are there, which you could find, helpful, that also with a course like this could help in this regard. So enrollment is now open. I look forward to seeing you all there in a couple of weeks when we finally start. And if you have any questions, please just leave a comment. If you know anyone who might be interested in this, then just forward them this video and the link to the enrollment page. And thank you very much for your time, for listening. And don't forget, I say it again, learn only in order to create. Thank you ever so much. I see you at the first seminar.